The second line, Achas Shishima Shirim Shana Haisa Ba Shel Ba Chetzia Min Shirai. Here's a Ba Chetzia Min Shirai. So basically Chetzia Min Shirai. Once every 6 or 7 years, the Brisa says, then there would be leftover, which amounted to half of a yearly measure, an annual measure of the Ktoris. So in other words, when they're mixing the Ktoris, then there would be a surplus every year, a slight surplus, and once every 6 or 7 years, it would all add up to half of the total amount of an annual Ktoris supply. And Hadahi, and this is what we learned, most Ktoris Mayosimba, what would they do with the excess Ktoris? Because here we see that there was excess Ktoris. So therefore the question is, of course, what they did with it, and that's discussed elsewhere. Tani, we want to take the Kazais B'chutz Chayev. This is talking about the Ktoris, even though Hikter is very often used for Korbanos themselves. Here it's talking about the Ktoris. Hikter Kazais B'chutz, if you bring part of a korban outside the Beis HaMikdash, Chayev, you're liable for the prohibition of bringing korbanos outside the Beis HaMikdash. Pachas mikazayis b'ifnim for bringing Ktoris. Sorry, it's Ktoris. You brought less than a kazayis outside, you're liable for bringing Ktoris outside. Pachas mikazayis b'ifnim, what if you brought Ktoris inside the Kodesh, but it was less than a kazayis? So potter, you're exempt. What are you exempt from? So B'Zir B'Shem Rabbi Yirmiyah wants to say Niftaru Atzibur Dei Chovason. You fulfilled your obligation for the day. In other words, the obligation to bring Ktoris doesn't have a shiur, doesn't even have to be kazayis. Anything you bring is sufficient. Says Gemara, no. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, it has to be the flip side of the previous statement. Since it says you're only liable if you're bringing Ktoris the size of kazayis on the outside, so Shema Minat Shama, from this you would conclude that Pachas Mikazayis Bifnim, Potter, that if it's less than kazayis on an inside, you are exempt, means that you're exempt from getting punished. Okay? So it means that if the outside is talking about where you're chayav for Ktoris outside the Beis HaMikdash, so by the inside can't be talking about you being yoytzer or chiyuv, rather it's talking about what you're potter, you're exempt from bringing, meaning, how should I put it? It means that even though you didn't, you're yotze your obligation, you might have thought that since a chiyuv, it's an isser which you committed because you brought a Ktoris and didn't bring the sufficient shiur. It's like, extra, like Baal Taisif, I guess, to bring extra Ktoris, which is actually, it says in Parsha Shmi, Lo Sa'alu Alav Ktoris Zora. You shouldn't bring a foreign Ktoris, so maybe this would be considered foreign Ktoris because it's not the proper shiur. It's too small. So therefore you might be chayiv, server say, no, you're potter. Just like outside, you're only chayiv unless if you have a kazayis. So to inside, you're only chayiv if you bring a superfluous Ktoris, if it's a kazayis extra. So let's say in the middle of the day you brought an extra kazayis of Ktoris, then of course you'd be chayiv. But if you bring less than a kazayis and you didn't bring a sufficient shiur, you're not chayiv having brought a sufficient, an extra Ktoris. Says the Gemara, Dako. It says in the Chumash that when you bring the Ktoris and a kibbutz, it's got to be Dako. It's got to be very finely ground. Matam Lord, why does it tell us this? Because already it says grind it finely the entire year. You can't Lomanamar Daka, so why does it say Daka special on Yom Kippur? Should they Daka mina Daka should be extra fine. Ketero said, what do you do? Marpish Losha money Erev Yom Kippur, you take us to set aside 3 measures on Erev Yom Kippur, you put them back in the grinder. In order to fill his hands with it the next day, in order to be finest of the fine. Period. Now, it said in the Mishnah that all the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim of the day were done in the from a pitcher. They weren't done from the kior. So it says the Gemara, except for the first one day, which he did from the kior to from not from a pitcher, but rather from the actual spigots of the shiur from which all the other kohanim would do it. Rabbi Yosef Mr. says Afil b'Kiddush Rishon, in first of the day was done from a pitcher. It was not done for the regular spigots. Matzisa b'Li Rabbi Yonah. It seems apparent that a Brisa argues Rabbi Yonah because it says Kol Kem Shu B'Mikdash Hayu Ruim L'Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. It says all the vessels in the base of Mikdash are suitable for Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. So it sounds like all Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim could be done from vessels. Why should you have to do the first one of the day from the shiur? So it says more, you pasalo chutz mikiddush rishon. No, except for the first one. First one has to be done from the spigots of the regular, shiur, because just like any other kohen has to begin his day with a kiddush yadayim raglayim from the shiur, so to the kohen gadol as well. Well, if that's the case, Masisa Pli Rabbi Yosef, it says there seems to be this taka price which argues Rabbi Yosef, which says hakior va'akein ma'akvi. Says you must have a shiur and its base in the base hamikdash in order to do the avodah. So we would seem that at the beginning of every day you must indeed do kiddush yadayim raglayim from the shiur. But so he says no, mikol ma'akiv, they have to be in place, but not that you actually have to use them. In other words, it's a din in the construction of the base hamikdash that there must be a shiur present in order the base hamikdash to be properly constructed, but not that you actually have to use them in order to fulfill the obligation of kiddush yadayim raglayim. Every day there were 4, this one which we just had in the Bible a few days ago, every day there were 4 pyres on the Mizbeach. Today there were 5 pyres, every day there were 3, today there were 4. Every day there were 2, today were 3. What's the part which teaches us our mayors stand that there were 4 every day and 5 today? It says every day there should be a fire in the Mizbeach, it should not be extinguished. That's the second fire to sustain the fire. The coin should burn a fire on it. It's an additional fire to consume the limbs and fats from the previous night. And you should put on it the Ola Zumaracha, that's the primary flame. Yerushalmi, you should put upon it the fats. So here we dash the word v'hiktir, Zukatores. This is the normal fire for the Ketores every year, and on Yom Kippur there's a special fire for the additional Ketores of Yom Kippur. It says Rabbi Yosef Marechas equal Evorim. So each one, obviously, in turn, our Mishnah deducts 1 Maracha. So later, Rabbi Yosef Marechas equal Evorim. Rabbi Yosef does not hold that there was a separate fire in order to consume the limbs of the day before, and he deducts 1 for that. Later, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't know there was a separate fire, Marechas Kumesh, to sustain the fire, so he deducts 1 for that. Ma'amakayim Rabbi Yehuda Eish Tamid. Alright, so what does Rabbi Yehuda do with the words of the pasuk? Eish Tamid, it seems like there must be a fire to sustain the fire. No, he mentions that Eish Shamayti L'cha, the fire I told you to Tamid. I'm sorry, Eish Shamayti L'cha Tamid. He mentions that the fire that I said should be constant, meaning the place where I want all the flame to constantly rage. Lote Elam Mizbeach, it should only be on the outer Mizbeach and not on the inner Mizbeach. We don't have a fire on the inner Mizbeach, which is constantly raging. It only is when you bring the Ketores in the morning, Ketores in the evening, and Yom Kippur, I'm sorry, Ketores morning, Ketores evening, extra Ketores, Yom Kippur didn't go on the Mizbeach also, I'm sorry, scratch that. Says the Gemara, Tom Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Lazar, the limbs and fats which are not consumed for the night before, also some Medura, you make them into a pile, the Sorach and Beat out, and you burn them by themselves. Not only that, for Shabbos, you can be Docha Shabbos for them. How do we know that? Rabbi Shmuel Barabba, Rabbi Yaakov Baracham Hashem Rabbi Shmuel Barabba said, Mas Isa Amar Kain. Our mission indicates that. Why? Because it says, B'chol Yom Hayu Sham Arba Marachos. It says there are 4 fires every day, and of course Yom Kippur 5th one. Mach Mamigo, how do you drive for that? Yom Chametz, it says today there's the 5th one, so therefore it must be that the every day, even including Yom Kippur, there was a fire for burning the limbs and fats, If there was a fire for burning limbs and fats, that means you can even do it on Shabbos, because Yom Kippur and Shabbos are the same kedusha. How could this be? So which is not necessary for the day is doicha the day, meaning you don't have to burn the limbs and fats. If there were no limbs and fats to burn, the korban is still kosher, right? So why do we need a separate fire for them? And that's doicha Shabbos, right? How could there be such a thing? So Amalei said a very interesting answer. It probably doesn't give this answer. Says Amalei, yeah, there are things which are doicha Shabbos which are not essential. For example, Eidei HaChodesh, the witnesses who come for Kiddush HaChodesh, they're not essential, right? You don't need Eidim for Kiddush HaChodesh. You just can wait till the no Eidim come, right? Or if they don't come, so you make Kiddush HaChodesh without them, right? So for Doichet, yet nevertheless the Doichet Shabbos, they push up Shabbos in order to make Kiddush HaChodesh Bismano, right? So too the Varim B'Torim, even though they're not necessary, the Doichet Shabbos in order to make Kiddush, in order to do it at the proper time, which means the evening after the korban is brought. How do we know that for Kiddush HaChodesh they're doicha Shabbos? It's here Tamon. We learned it back from Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Shamahal Chayla V'Yayim. When they can get the basin by the end of the following day, Mechanis the Shabbos, you defile the Shabbos, desecrate the Shabbos. The Yotzin is the Chodesh will go out to testify in the new moon. I know this is a separate fire for Yom Kippur in order to make the Ketor, in order to bring the coals for the Ketor burning Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yerushalmi Yuma said, Gachale, very interesting derivation. It says Gachale. It says coals, fake coals. Matam Lomer Eish. Why does it say Gachale Eish? Coals of fire. Right? What are coals made out of? Water. Matam Lomer Eish. So it says, look at this drush, very interesting. Shibetela Gabi Gichol means the fire from which constitutes the pyre from which you take the coals for the inner Kedoros should be considered null and void, or rather should be negated by having taken that fire. In other words, these Gecholim, they are the Eish. Now if it's one of the other Marachos, the pyre survived the taking of the coals, right? Because it's independent fuel. But if it's a pyre exclusively and solely created for the purpose of getting the coals for the Kedoros, so then it will not survive, of course, the taking of the coals for the Kedoros. That's learned Gachle Eish. These coals should be the coals that make up the fire and no more. So it's got to be a special pyre. Okay? Now we're going to darshan every word here. We darshan Gachle, we darshan Eish, and we darshan the juxtaposition of Gachle Eish separately. So it says more, let's see that inside. Gechole, Yochel Omamos. Gechole sounds like it could be dark coals. Tam Lomer Eish, no, it says fire. Yochel Shalevis, perhaps it's then a live flame. Tam Lomer Gechole Eish. It says Gechole. So how so? How we reconcile these two possibilities? Mina Lochshos, hot coals, meaning they're whispering coals, which means they're making noise because they're crackling. Lochshos from these crackling coals. We again, how do we know the fire should be canceled once the coals are taken away? It's got to be that these coals make up the fire. Period. Rabbi Shimon Levi Amar Ein Lechma Apanim Nifsa B'Shas Masos. Very interesting discussion. Not immediately relevant to our discussion here. Well, it's only very roundabout. But in the Mishkan, when they travel from place to place, what was the status of Lechem Apanim? It was traveling, right? So it was outside its walls, right? So it is impossible because of Yotze, whether it left its proper precincts or not. So it's machlokas. So Rabbi Shimon Levi Amar Ein Lecha Panim Nifsa B'Shas Masos. It's not rendered possible by traveling. Rabbi Yechel Amar Lecha Panim Nifsa B'Shas Masos. It is rendered possible by traveling. Rabbi Shimon Levi said, to bring you a proof that it's not rendered unfit. Why is that? Because it says Kasher Yachanu Ken Yisavawu. Just like when they to camp, so to when they travel. Look at that. Just like when they're sitting tight, it doesn't become possible. Obviously not, because they're in camp and all the boundaries are properly set up and it has its own precincts. So too when they travel, it's as if they're standing still, and therefore, if so, the bread is not rendered possible. Rabbi Yamishim Rishub and Levi said a different drasha teaches us the same thing. Benasa oil moed, it says that the tent, which is the Mishkan, Mach Levim, at the camp of the Levites, should travel with Socha Machanos, should travel within the other camps. Says the Gemara, what is it coming to tell us, right? So it says the Gemara, within the camps, with Socha Machanos, and even when it's traveling, it's the same status when it's sitting stationary within the camps, meaning that the Lechem Aponim is not Nifsal B'Yoytzeh. Okay? Now, a similar question. Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yami said, B'Shem Elazar, named Rabbi Elazar, Hasarev Kachim Bachut. So if you burn Kachim outside the Beis HaMikdash, outside the Mishkan, and we do this at a time when they're traveling, right? They're the same idea, right? So, he gets malchus because, the Beis HaMikdash is as if it exists, and therefore you cannot burn any kachim outside at that point, even though they're traveling. Rabbi Yochanan said, kachim nitchim b'shas masos na'a. At the time they're traveling, all kachim lose their status, because it's if they left their proper precincts, right? As we said before. So therefore, you can do whatever you want with it. You can burn it, you can eat it, you can throw it to the wind, whatever. But of course, you can't eat it. But you can burn it any way you want. You don't have to retain its status as kachim. However, this is kind of an aside. Rabbi Yochanan, Tmeim Prushim Kolech Lechem Mimchitza. So even though technically speaking, all the camp's boundaries between Machanos and between the Trina Machanos and between the Mishkan and all that is cancelled. So therefore, the Kachim are Nidche, they're pushed off and rendered unfit. Nevertheless, the Tmeim were always separate from the camp. They remain separate from the camp even when the camp is traveling. And it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, they said, nah, you should know that this is a very, very prevalent statement in the mouths of the rabbis. They argue Rabbi Yochanan. What do they say? A very interesting statement. The stalkwa parochas, once the parochas is moved in its proper place, hutra mechitzas zavim tzorayim, the zavim tzorayim, all those tmeim guys, they can cram into the camp. They don't have to stay out anymore. So Rabbi Yochanan said they do. He argues and says they do not have to. Okay? Now, Masisim Sayadeh. There's a brisa to assist each one of the previous statements as to whether Lechem Aponi becomes possible when they're traveling. First, Masisim Sayadeh Rabbi. Typo, of course, here, Gillian Ephraim and Shai Torah starts to say Masisim Sayadeh Rabbi Yochanan. First, they have brisa which prove Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it's good that at the time that they're traveling, it's no longer Lechem Aponi. Why? Because it says in the Torah, Lechem Aponi Lefanai Tomid. It's always my Lechem Aponi. Tomid means Afilu says the Sifra there with the Medrash Tanoim. Afilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos it's my Lechem Aponi. Tomid Afilu b'Taptumati until even when you're Tomid it's my Lechem Aponi. Yes, but why didn't it say Shas Masos? Why did it say there should be Lechem Aponi Lefanai Tomid in that Safra, the darshan that also when they're traveling? So it must be when they're traveling, it's not considered to be part and parcel of the time requisite to have bread on Lechem Aponi. The flip side of that is, it must be that bread which is on Lechem Aponi when they travel is possible. As a result, it comes to possible because of the Yotzei.
Now, the Shulchan, the Lechem Aponi was the Shulchan that they were traveling.
Right, but the Shulchan outside the Kodesh is not as holy. That's exactly the point he's making here. Okay? Says the Gemara, Masisim Messiah Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Which is the side note says Rabbi Yochanan, the flip side of the typo. So Bryce is like Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. It says, Lo Sechabeh, the fire on the Mizbech was not extinguished, Af Masos, even when they were traveling. So from here we see that whatever Kedusha there was retained even during traveling, it's logical to say that applies to Lechem Aponim as well. Says more, the fire didn't go out. So Shas Masos Mayu Osim B'Law. How do you keep? What do they do with the fire, right? It says Mario Kaifin Lo Paskatar. They put on it a metal vessel. Tiber Abiuda. Shimon Mer no. At the time that they traveled, they used to turn down the fire and clean out the ashes. Shamar says, it says, take the ashes off the mizbeach and put on it a purple garment. So this you see they used to start the fires when they travel, right? But you have a mizbeach dola because obviously the zeal is burning. Loya begging now come on this rough. When did the purple garment get burned? So it must be they stopped the fire. Takim, I have Rabbeinu. What's Rabbeinu do with the fact that they put a garment over it? It's a good proof against him who says that when fire gets up burning, why didn't it burn? It says more according to Rabbi Yehuda, Pasketar Yukoif in the law of the Milamawa. Immediately on top of the fire there was this metal cage, and on top of that they put the Beged Argamon, so there was an end from something in the middle which wouldn't get burnt. It says more fine. But Mamakam Rabbi Yehuda, what does it really do with the post which says additional time Mizbech, they should clean up the Mizbech when they travel? How can they clean it off, right? If the fire is going, then they don't clean it off. It says more v'yirvu. No, he interprets the word v'dishnu here means v'yirvu. Yirvu means the Mizbech should be happy, meaning it should be properly packed up. Just like somebody who's roveh, satiated and is full. Kaidom Rabbi and Pazuk says v'ocha v'sava v'dashein. He translates here dishnu is like it says you will eat and be satisfied and become fat. So to here, it doesn't mean literally they remove the ash, but it means the mizbeach was prepared in a proper fashion for traveling, in a way which made it dashein, which made it relaxed. I guess I don't know exactly how to translate. In any event, that made it luxuriant. Okay?
Like the fire was...
No conclusion. I think it's commonly assumed that it was on the road they were traveling. I don't know where I remember that from. Might be. That's just my making it up. Okay. Adra Paratar Bakafi. New parak. By the way, you came late. We had no minyan tonight. So we're trying to make it, and I think we will. So anybody who wants to, meaning myself, can make it to Rabbi Achan's shiur for 10 o'clock minyan. So one blot down. One to go. Otilo Zakafe Samachta. Sorry for rushing you. I didn't know. Otilo Zakafe Samachta. They took out for the Kohen Gadol the kaf, the spoon, and the machta, the shovel. And of course, the Gemara is going to ask in the Bible, Yerushalmi, same question asked in the Bible, that it already had the shovel full of coals outside already. And he took handfuls. And they put it into the spoon. However, if you go the chafina, the mloch of Naim was by a big coin according to his size. However, if you go a small coin according to his size as well. The kachai so midasan, and this was their measure. In the Bible it says midasa, and that provokes several questions by the part of the Bible. But here in the Yerushalmi it says midasan. It might be for that reason there aren't any questions of what it means, because it would mean very simply that the size of the coin determines the size of the chafina. Okay, so he takes the shovel with the coals in his right hand. He takes the spoon with the ktoris in his left hand. He goes into Eichel until it reaches the two paroches. There were two, one behind the other. Between them there was an amma walkway. Rabbi Yossi says, "Lo yasham el parochos achos bilvad." There's only one parochos. Shemar says, "V'yidil parochos lachem," singular, in kodesh and kodesh kodashim, between the holy and the holy of holies. Okay. Says the Megamore, "Lo kvartini." So then we already learn about the shovel. Nados Samachti took them out of the shovel, went to the top of Mizbeach, and got coal there. Previously, so let's somebody should talk about what's about a new machta. Kinemasi, this is a way to understand our Mishnah. It's a kaf, it's not the machta, but rather it's the spoon, and it's a bazech, which is a container which contains the ketores, for the rest of the year, or vice versa. It's not clear, but one of these things, the pashtus, the bezech. The kaf is the spoon which you scoop out the ketores, and the bezech is the large container which is contained. Mao kaf, what is a kaf? Obviously, it's got to be large. It could be a magus. It's got to be like a ladle, not a stam kaf, but a rather ladle because it's got to hold the kohen gadol's moloch of 9. Okay. Says where maybe a magus, so it means a mixing spoon. Our Rabbi said Adamara. Now our mission teaches us a very interesting concept according to Adamara teaches us that Kli Chol, that the vessel in which they store the ketores is a mundane vessel. Because he Tamar Kli Kodesh, we're going to say it's a holy vessel. So how could it be Dover Shakish Bikli, something which was consecrated in a vessel? I was like, Clay called it, Intem of Clay College, Dover Shakish Bikli, I forgot to read this. Yeah, but now what's it supposed to mean? Why shouldn't be Mechaber? What?
Doesn't mean that it has kapara. Doesn't change its confusion.
I don't know whatever that means, though. Of course, we did to solution. It's cliche. Missing something. I guess you're right. I think it's maybe it's supposed to be nifta. Yeah, the carbonated changes the gear, sir. That's what's throwing me off. Carbonated changes the gear, sir. Let me just set up the motion. Yeah, nifta. Haha, got to change in the text. Okay, sorry. 1 second. Time out on the field. Ketores could be redeemed. Ketores could be redeemed because every year it has to come for the new fiscal year. Remember, there's something left at the end of the year, they have to redeem it and buy it back, right? So if that's the case, if it was Kaddish and Klisharis, something which is Kaddish and Klisharis can never be redeemed. So if the storage vessel in which the storage was stored was holy, so then they can never redeem it at the end of the year. So therefore it must... What? No, the bezek which holds it till now. Okay? Mao kaf is megas, period. And Amar Rabbi Yossi Adamra that the bezek from which they pour it, the bezek was the container which held it the rest of the year, the large container which held the ketores. So it must be that bezek is a kli chol, because in temar kli kodesh, you're going to say it's holy. Darvish kiddush b'kli nifta. It's already consecrated. It can't be redeemed anymore. These power. Now this is itself a machlokas. We have machlokas pitma b'chulin. If you made the ketores in chulin, meaning not in a holy vessel, so Rabbi Yisrael chinamar psula. He holds it's got to be made in a holy vessel. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Mark Shira. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says it's kosher. Might never be Rabbi Yisrael Chanina. What's allowed to Rabbi Yisrael Chanina? Kodesh, it says the Ketores is holy. Should they have also been Kodesh? She brought from a Kodesh vessel. Might have Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Kodesh he means not that it should be brought from a holy vessel, rather should they born Trumas Alishka that should come from Hekdesh funds. Meaning that the Ketores is brought from the Trumas Alishka for the funds which come ultimately from the Machzis of Shekel, just like all Karbonos. Rabbi Yisrael Boon said a very interesting comparison. As you have the Rabbi Yisrael Chinik Shmuel. Rabbi Yisrael Chinik is going like Shmuel. Rabbi Shimon Levi goes like Rabbi Yochanan. How so? The thing we learned, Amakti Shulchas of Soni consecrates all this property. Abayibam, Dvarim Ruim, the Karbonos Sibur. There are things in them which are suitable for Karbonos Sibur. Now, whatever happens to them is not material to us. But what are things right the Karbonos Sibur? Rabbi Yochanan says, Keteres. If that's the case, we see that somebody is bequeathing, right? Ketores, it must be he made the Ketores himself. Does he own Kli Sharis? This guy, only the base of Mikdash owns Kli Sharis. So it must be that we're talking about Kli Sharis. That's right, that a Ketores is not to be made in a Kli Sharis, right? Because again, how can it say he's bequeathing it to Hekdesh already was Hekdesh? Is that clear?
Maybe it's the monetary value of the
No, but then it was already Kodesh. He's not giving anything. Right? It says here that a Makdash Chasiv very means it wasn't Kodesh till now. Right? So Masir Rabbi Yochanan says that it's making that Ketores can be made in the Chulin. On Rabbi Yeshua said no, not necessarily. Potter, maybe it's about Uman Mishal Beis Avtinas. Now the truth is, Gilin Ephraim takes out the Uman Mishal Beis Avtinas. That's a little bit difficult because maybe Beis Avtinas they used to make the Ketores in the Kli Sharis. They were experts. They could make it in the Kli Sharis. What's the big deal? There's no trial and error by them. So he takes out the words. He says Potter Uman. Why Uman? Why craftsman? Because craftsman that's at the end of the year is to do the rollover. Is they would give it to Uman as, so to speak, not directly, but as wages for his, we had him after Shkot, as wages for his work, and then he would sell it back to the Beis HaMikdash. So we see that there is Ketores which can be, even though it's Kodesh, can then be made Chol again. And that's leftover Ketores at the end of the year. Says the Gemara, Shoyanotos Chor B'Schor Ketores, you speak as the real Ketores, and then for the Ketores to be deconsecrated. So it says Rabbi Yisrael Chinik Shmuel. That's all like Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Shimon Levi says that it can be made, the Ketores can be made in a Kli Chol. Now, Rabbi Yisrael Chinik is going like Shmuel. I'm Rabbi Chun B'Shem Shmuel, that has he done a Kli Kodesh. Machdesh is also a Kli Sharis and Kodesh. The mortar and pestle themselves are like a Kli Sharis in order to consecrate the Ketores. Okay, so it has to be made in Kodesh. Rabbi Yisrael Rabun said, Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi Chuna, Kumi Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Chuna told over the Sugi to Rabbi Yosef. And he asked him, wait a minute, hold on. So in fact, how can he give, if you're going to say Ketores has been made in a holy vessel, how can he give it to a craftsman at the end of the year? It's still Kodesh. Still Kodesh, now have to give it over. If it's made in Kli Chol, I can understand you give it to a craftsman. But it's made in Kli Kodesh, how can you ever give it to a craftsman? It's holy stuff. Can't be redeemed. Says more, Armalei. So he said there's a couple answers here. One answer is B'lav Shmuel, who isn't it going like Shmuel? U'Shmuel Amar, Kalu b'moisar. There's a special leniency by left over that even though it's Kodesh, you can still redeem it. The Ispal, because we learned such machlokas, so see your community. At the end of the year, this is a trick question. I'm going to get you guys tonight. How many Tmidim will excess to me were at the end, left at the end of every year? Most years. Excess Tmidim. Get out those kicking machines.
Then it wouldn't be a trick question.
6. Because they used to have always 4 days in advance. Don't remember that? In the Lishkas HaTloim, they used to have always 4 days to meet him in advance. No?
You say so.
Do you remember, Dr. Zina? No? Do you remember? So there were 6 left at the end of the year. So the question is how to get them to roll over to the following year. Because there were always 4 those that day and 3 more days. So says the Gemara, how do you roll over those 6? So it's here to be Nishmol Mar Niftin Ketmimim. They can redeem even though they're Tamim. Even though they're Tmimim. There's no such thing generally speaking, but that's a special cow because they're surplus. Rabbi Yochanan Mar Niftin Kesulim Mikdash have to be grazed till they get a moment only then redeemed. Similarly, Osir Tzeirim. So Osir Tzeirim. The excess goats left over, which are going to be brought as Musafim, for Musaf they brought goats. Same with the Adat Shmuel. Shmuel says, if they say, you can redeem an oila. A tamid, right? A chatos, the Tzeirim were brought as chatos, so Koshke, you certainly can redeem it. Daiti Rabbi Yochanan, no, Rabbi Tzir Omer, Yiru, they must be grazed so they get a moon, which is the same thing he said before, that they have to be redeemed like Bali movement. Shmuel, you can use these and bring them as olos to adorn the mizbech. They don't have to be redeemed. They can be used directly as olos. Says what? Gosh, it's difficult. Yesh chatas crave oila. Hey, it will start out being chatas. So chatos for musaf of Rosh Chodesh of a yontif. How can you make an oil? What kind of sleight of hand is that? So he said, Shani. Actually, the Lord's going to give 2 reasons. One reason is, you only fix the carbon tibor as whatever carbon it's meant to be when it's shechted. So therefore, mortal words of certain individuals, mentions names, base matter, it ain't over till it's over. So therefore, since until the shechita takes place, there is no determination. You can bring the schatus as an ola. Right? You can upgrade kedusha. That's what you do. It says more another answer. Rabbi Chanina ben Trajo, a different answer, which is a very well-known answer. Tonight, based in Alam Osora Shekarvu Ola. It's like late based in Masna we have in the Bavli, which is that Basin says if they're left over, we'll make them olos. It's part of the original Hektish. That there's a t'nai built in that if they're left over, they can become olos. Okay? Now, in any event, all that just teaches us that we have a machlokas about Ktores, but Ktores has to be made in Kli Chol or Kli Shores, and even in saying Kli Shores, there's a possibility they can still redeem it at the end of the year. Why? Because it's a special kula based on really, the Gemara didn't use it till now, but also previously, a lay based in Masna, that you should have the capacity to change something which is surplus at the end of the year and have it revert to some other purpose. Okay? Says the Gemara, Molei Kumtza. It says about the Ktores, about Mincha, sorry. By Mincha it says Molei Kumtza. Right? Full comments. Yocham Molei Kumtza Mevurats, maybe what means even coming out of the sides, right? Extending. No, says Gemara, Talmud Lomar Bikumtzo, in its comments. Even Kumtzo, Yochel Yikmotz Rosh is supposed to just have a little bit like this, right? Do a little bit with the tips of your fingers. Talmud Lomar Molei Kumtzo, complete. Okay, so what do? Chopes Pas Yodo B'machvas, you stick your palm into the machvas, the pan, Merchesh is the tipat, and then you pull up flour, and you wipe off the excess with your finger on top, and lamata. Okay? Says Mar Taman, okay, that works by koyimits. Taman atomar mole kumtzo, bikumtzo, but hocha atomar mole. It's a type. I don't know typo. It could work without calling it typo, but it's easier to call it typo. But here it says according to carbonator mole chofnov. It says mole chofnov. So what does mole chofnov teach us? You have to have pashtus as much of the Kohen Gadol can possibly hold. But how do you know only what he can hold, because it doesn't say bichofnav here. It says bikum, so there. It only says bichofnav, molichofnav here. So Rabbi Yaakov Acher, Rabbi Simon Shem, Rishon and Levi say it's a gzera shava. Right? We learn out from Klaimet. That was a gzera shava, or a mamotzinu. I think it's a gzera shava because it says moli. Malal and Klaimet. What? It says Klaimet. Okay. Malal and Klaimet is a couple of typos here according to Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael. We can make do without the typos. So it's basically the same thing. Malal and Klaimet mevurat possible, just like a Klaimet which is excess. Mevurat is excess. It's possible. Hacha here too. Chafnaim mevuratzim. Right? If it's excess, it's possible. It has to be precise. No more, no less. Says more further. Chafnaim mashiasu kikli shoris the kaddish. The chafnaim is we had probably, I think, right? Chafnaim mashiasu kikli shoris the kaddish. This hands like a kli shoris. So, acher ma'ushiachon v'yitei l'chofno. Well, this question is going to be related. Can somebody else do the chafina and just pour it into his chofnaim? Does he have to scoop it up himself? The kohen go, so can he scoop into his hands? Ma'ushiachon midel chofno. Can he, instead of doing a chofnaim, it's not so hygienic, can he make a measure? Use the measure like a measuring cup in order to measure the chofnaim. B'chol chofnaim misharin. Can it work with anybody's chafnaim or Emisharin El B'chafna for only his? So Rabbi Shimon Levi asked another question. Chaf on Umeis, what if he we could have this in the Bavli for sure. He did chafnaim and he died. Acher Maushi Kodesh B'chafna, can the next Kohen go to come in with his chafnaim? So it says the Gemara, they're all things are linked together. If he's going to say the chafnaim is like a kli shores, and it's mekadosh. Adam ra chafanu meis, it teaches us if he died, did the chafin and died, ein acher nichnas b'chafnav. Nobody else can go in with his chafnaim, right? Because it was in his kli shores. It's got to be in his kli shores. It started in his kli shores. Can't go into somebody else's, right? Also, nobody else can put it into his chafnaim. He's got to do it himself because it's his kli sharis which is required by the Torah. Now there's an interesting change in girsa here. Karmei says means we need his chafnaim, right? We need it. We need him because it's his hands of kli sharis. But the other meforshim here, they don't change the girsa. The Pnei Moshe says no. You can make a if his hands are kli sharis, so he can commission the making of another kli sharis. Because what difference does it make if it's his hand, or if it's a hand, if it's a measure made to order, which is can contain the same amount as his hands. So therefore, he says it's the girsa proper. If his hands are kli sharis, you can make a kli which is of the same dimensions. The girsa chafnaim is when he measures out at the beginning, but rather it's going on how he transports it to the Kodesh Kodashim. So they say, if his hands are like a kli sharis, so that means you have to carry his hands to Kodesh Kodashim because that's a kli sharis, and that's the way to transport it from where he is to the Holy of Holies. But make another kli sharis according to his midah, right? That's okay. It's the same thing. So therefore, that's an alternate possibility. So again, the three possibilities here: either to change the girsa, because his hands are essential, which I think is the Pashim shot, or to say that no, since his hands are kli sharis, so therefore he can make a kli sharis instead of that, based on his measure, and use that in order to either measure out the Ketores originally, or to transport it to the Kodesh Kodashim, which is in fact what we do, right? In fact, we do transport the Ketores to the Kodesh Kodashim in a keli, not in his hands. So that's more of Eimashayim b'chol chafnaim, and you can't use anybody else's chof, and it has to be his chafnaim because it's his. That's the required kli sharis for this avodah. In Tema chafnaim lo asus on kli sharis in kodesh. If you're going to say his chafnaim are not like a kli sharis vis-a-vis the avodah, hadar mara chafan ameis acher nichnas b'chafna. So even if he dies, somebody else can go in and continue. His hands are not what are requisite. He's dead. We use somebody else's hands. And acher chayfim nosato chovna. You don't need him to do it. Let somebody else do it and put it into his hands. Venos imida l'chovna. And according to the coordinator. Here too, we change the gear. So you can make a midah instead of him measuring. You measure with a klisharis, according to the Gillian Oshas and the Pnei Moshe. No eno simido luchofna is specific, and it means that if his hands are klisharis, you can make it clean instead of his hands. But since his hands are not a klisharis, so his dafka has to use his hands and not a kli instead. And finally, Mishayim B'chol Chofnaim, so you can use anybody's hands as long as you use hands, because the Chofnaim are not a Klishori specifically, and therefore no matter what hands you use, those hands suffice. Period. We are on Daf Chav Haman base, and we're up to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line from the bottom, 6th line from the bottom. Begin the line. Hagodol fi godlo, a large person based on his size. Va'koton va'afiluk ben kimchis, even if he's like ben kimchis, shoysa yodam achzekas karbo arbas kabin, whose hand held 4 kav. Va'koton fi kodno, and a small person based on his size, afiluk ben gamel, even like ben gamel, shloisa yodam achzekas el kishnei zeisim, whose hands only held 2 zeisim, with very small hands. So no matter what the chofnaim hold, that's sufficient. Hiluch bizarre mao. This is a case which the Bavli is also discussed, I think, elsewhere. I don't remember it's in Yuma. Maybe there's Yuma to it. Yeah, but I think we also in Yuma. Hiluch bizarre if a zar brings the blood closer than his mizbeach. Mao, what's the status? Chizki Amar Hiluch bizarre kosher. Remember we had it elsewhere in Yerushalmi, that might be it. Hiluch bizarre kosher. So Chizki says, it doesn't matter, it's not one of the avodas. So the zar can take the blood closer than his mizbeach. Rabbi Yanai Amar Hiluch Bazar Pasul. If a zar takes the blood closer, it's Pasul. Masisa Bliga Rabbi Yanai. The Mishnah seems to argue Rabbi Yanai, because what does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says the following Mishnah: Kibel b'yamino v'nosam b'smolo. If you accepted the blood in your right hand and you put it in your left hand, yachs in a minute you have to put it back to your right hand, right? And so the sounds like this left hand is no good. Usmolo lav locus. I'm sorry. It sounds you can put it back in your left hand, meaning that in your right hand when you get the mizbeach to Uzrika. So it sounds like the left hand is good. Usmolo, and his left hand, lav kizar, who isn't not like a zar, right? Just like a zar is not a kohen, so to your left hand doesn't have the parameters of kuna. Yet it says as long as it gets back to the right hand in the end, you began the right hand, the end in the right hand. If it goes left hand in the middle, it's not a problem. So it says more, no, not necessarily. Might be really is a problem. The part to this type of, perhaps this type of case, shows a smolo klape lifnim, that your left hand was more inwards than your right hand. So in other words, you had, let's say the mizbeach is this direction, right? So when I put the keli with the blood in my left hand, I have to return it to my right hand immediately. And that means I have to go this way to get to my right hand, which is outwards, away from the mizbeach, right? So actually halacha going towards the mizbeach with the left hand is possible. Going away from the mizbeach, obviously, is not a problem. So therefore, that's okay. So we said we're talking about whether halacha b'zor is kosher. So it says more Rabbi Ba. So he tried to bring a raya from the left hand. That just like the left hand is okay. So Zor is okay. So it says more, no, left hand is not okay. You have to give back the right hand before you make any progress to your left hand, even when you're standing still. So I'm right, but if you tamer klapi l'chut, you know what? Even if you say that the left hand can go and make progress from beyond further to the mizbeach to closer to the mizbeach, nevertheless, it's not a proof that Zor is okay. Because Shani Yahi, Hiluch Bezor, Shani Me'elov. There's a difference between a non-Kohen, right, who's a Zor, and the Kohen's left hand, which is still being done by a Kohen. Amr Zir said, Pshitas Yad, along with this concept, extending by hand, Loasu Sokiluch, it's not the same thing like walking, right? Walking is actually traveling. Extending by hand doesn't have the same parameters. Perhaps you can extend by hand even to the left hand, but you may not walk. Only a Kohen can walk, not a Zor walking the pitcher.
It's like Rabbi Zir and Rabbi Boss saying the same thing.
They are. He's confirming what the svara is. Masisa pliga Rabbi Yanai. The following Mishar is Rabbi Yanai. It says, Nishbach min hakli al ritzba. If some of the stuff falls out of the vessel on the floor, v'asafo, and you gather up kosher, then it is valid. You may use it. So we see that even if it's rolling on the floor towards the mizbeach, it's okay. Certainly a zor should be okay. As Marno, Amravi v'tipoter shem misgalgel, so typo should be klape chutz. Even that's talking about specifically where the blood is rolling away from the mizbeach. So therefore, the rolling didn't do any good, and that's why the halacha is just being done by a kosher kohen. Amrei Barabba said, "Afilu teimah klape should be lifnim." Even if you say it's rolling towards mizbeach, again, shani yiluch bizar, the difference between where zor is taken, shani shiluch melav, as opposed to where it's going on its own. A zor might be worse because a zor is not just neutral, but it's like he's matami. It's right, he defiles it by carrying towards the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Zir said, Pshitas Yad, also so kiluch here. This is it's either out of place here. The Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael says it's superfluous. It's good. Same we had before, and it's not out of place here. If it's supposed to be here, then probably you have to do like Pnei Moshe and say, Rabbi Zir, Pshitas Yad, Lo Suasaki Hiluch. That here we see that the extension by hand is not the same thing like walking, and Pshitas Yad Losu, like the same way it said before, that Pshitas Yad is not like Hiluch. In other words, it's possible here, not Pshitas Yad, but the stuff can roll towards the Mizbeach on its own, but a Zor cannot take it. So, again, it's not clear if this should be here, because obviously, before I told you about actually extending in the left hand. Now it's talking about not with the hand, but it's rolling on the floor. But if you use it, it's figuratively speaking, it's the same thing like taking it in your other hand. And again, the way Pnei Moshe learns it, Pshitas Yad Lo Suasok Hiluch, it's not like Hiluch, and even though Hiluch is possible by a Zor, Pshitas Yad, or rolling, is not possible when it's done on itself. Masisa pli Rabbi Yana, yet another Mishnah argues Rabbi Yana. It says, Natal samachta b'yamino, the Kohen Gadol takes the shovel in his right hand, there's a kaf and the spoon with the ktoros in his left hand, Mismolo. Says one, no, there it's different. There, Shani Yishoenu Yochel also. How you can't take both in your right hand. There, left hand is okay, because you can't take both in your right hand. When you go to Yitlo Sobas Rosha, you want to strap on the spoon to your arm, right? And have them both on the right hand. That's here, but you don't do it. Hilos of Israel ain't a der covered. It's not bad, it doesn't pass, you can't do that. Now, the next Gemara, for the next 5 lines, it's impossible. There's no way to understand it. I stared at it for an hour today, almost, trying to figure it out. It's really 5 lines, but it's impossible. All the Mepharshim go crazy trying to figure out what it is, and some just give up. So in any event, I will give you my pshat, which is just as good as any other pshat, and it has based on one tenuous assumption, I concede, but nevertheless, it's worth a shot, and I think it's original, and I like it, so let me tell it to you anyway. V'yachlif. Now, yachlif would mean, conventionally speaking, would mean, well, switch the right hand to the left hand, or let's put the kaf on the right hand and put the macht on the left hand. But that's not going to work. Okay? Trust me, it's not going to work if you take yachlif to be conventional. Rather, so I think what yachlif means like this. Yachlif means not switch the kaf to your right hand and the macht to your left hand, but, in the spirit of Bert Kahn, switch and hold the kaf and tie the machta to your arm. Why? Because it's not there to put the ktoris tied to your arm, because the ktoris are going to give to the kings. You're bring it, hold it on your elbow. But the coals, what are the coals are such a big deal? So Gemara's kasha is, so switch, okay, so don't put the ktoris in your head tied on, but tie on the coals. So it says Gemara, Savri Meimar, no, they want to say im hichlif posel. To do that is no good. Why is it no good? Why now is it me machlif? So it's into because it says by the macht of lo kach melo macht o gach layesh. It says you got to hold it. It says v'lokach. V'lokach means you have to hold the app. You have to hold the machta.
Putting it under the crook.
That's not called holding. It's not going to work. You have to hold in your hand. Okay, so you have to hold in your hand. So it says more biyachte. Now the Gemara asks the question. So switch. Okay, fine. So you have to hold, but switch anyway. You're going to hold some in your left hand, right? Because you can't hold both in your right hand. So switch. Put the macht on your left hand, and put the Ktoris in your right hand. So it's more kosher. You're right. You could do that. That's fine. The reason, as if you recall, the Bavli said the reason why you put the macht on your right hand is because the macht is usually heavier. So therefore, since it's heavier, so you want to have in the right hand to hold it better. But you want to switch, because there's nobody going to stop you from switching. Now, the Ridbas brings an interesting thing here. He says, why tak is the left hand good for Ktoris? For no other avodah is left hand good, but for Ktoris it's good. So he says a very nice story. He says, because by the Ktoris, by definition you have to use your left hand. Why is that? Because the chafina is both hands, right? So therefore, left hand, by the definition, plays the role in Ktoris. By no other avodah is that true. Even by Ktoris the rest of the year, as we'll see in a moment, it's not true. You don't have to do chafina by any other Ktoris the rest of the year. But by Ktoris on Yom Kippur, there's an Indian of chafina. So that's what teaches you that the left hand has a valid place to serve, right? So it says, V'omar of Tamon. Now the Gemara has to ask, what about taka regular Ktoris? Every day of the year. What about every day of the year? Every day of the year, how many quantity do the Ktoris? 2. One takes the machta, and one takes the kaf. And each one takes in the right hand, right? So ask Gemara, every day, why doesn't one Kohen do it? And take the kaf and machta, just like Kohen go to Yom Kippur, right? Excuse me. Says Gemara, V'amar of Tamon. So, v'yechte. Let's also there, take one in each hand, right? Yechte means, the machta in the left hand and the kaf in the right hand, or vice versa. Says Gemara, no. Taman im hichti posel im hichti posel. There, no matter what, it's posel. Hichti is posel and hichti is posel. Why is even whether you do put both in one hand, with one strapped on and one on top, or you switch hands, right? Put one in each hand, one in the other hand. No matter what's posel, you can only take one thing. Why is that? Because hichlif is posel because it says has to be taken, and you can't use your left hand because, like the Ridbaz says, by Yom Kippur you can only use the left hand because the left hand is anyway part of the avodah, right? For the chafina. So you continue to use it for the avodah for the bringing in. But by every day there's no chafina. There's no din of chafina. There's a specific measure every day of Torah. So you don't do chafina every day. So therefore it's every day. So you can't say that you could use the left hand, right? So again, from Avtamon, say no, Tamini mechti posel, mechli posel. You can't do either of those things. You gotta take, and you gotta take the afkin in your right hand. But here, imechti kosher, if you switch hands, if you hold both in your hands, either way, it's kosher. Imichlif only if you're machlif, meaning you put both in one hand, one tied on and one in your hand, then it's possible because you're not holding it properly. Okay? That's the end of the hard part. Hakomodim. Everybody agrees. Shemichnisan achas achas kiper. If you brought in first the machta with the coals, then you went back out and got the Ktoris again, it works. But the Bavli didn't say you're yoytzi, but the Bavli didn't say you are over if you're going twice, because you're only allowed to go into kachim at minimum times necessary, right? And you're going in extra time. Which one is the bad one? So the second time, surely gone once. No. The guy went in with the coals. So what do they tell him? Figuratively speaking, of course, they tell him, "Hey, go back! You only put in the coals. Put in now the Ktoris itself, right?" So we tell him, "Go back again." We push him back in. You say he's over on the second time. That's the one we make him do. It's the first one he was over, because the first one was like he did a half a thing. He didn't do the proper avodah the first time. The second time he completes the avodah. First time he did part of the avodah, right? So the first one he's over that he shouldn't have gone in by itself. The second one is the one he should have gone in for. Similarly, Talmudim learned over there, when you get Tomei the Beis Mikdash, you have to exit as soon as possible. So it says, what if you didn't exit as soon as possible? First you bowed down. You thought it was good, right? Or you stayed enough time, you stood. Now there's enough time to bow down. What do you transgress? On the standing still or bowing, or on the time you run out? So Chavrai Omrei, here the Korban Heder change the Girsa. Chavrai Omrei, they say, Allah Chroina, on the running out, right? On the, which is like the second time by the Ketores, right? You already stayed the allotted amount of time, which is the amount of time it takes to leave. You use that up in bowing down. So now, we're going to flog you. You're going to have to be in Korban for having continued to remain in the Beis HaMikdash beyond that time. Rabbi Yisrael said, no. Omer lo say that he in the latter part of the time when he's actually running out, he's doing what he's supposed to do, right? To leave. So V'ata Marachin, so they're going to say in that time he transgresses Ella ala Rishoina. What time does he transgress? And the first time when he's standing there and bowing down. Okay. Now it says the Kohen Gadol goes in the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim. Between the Kodesh Kodashim are two curtains, and between the two curtains is a thickness of an amma. Rabbi Hillel said, Zecher Ladovar. This is a commemoration of the first base in Israel where there was a wall there. The key to Tzinitan, like we learned over there, Amma Traxin. There's an Amma Traxin, which is the Amma between the two parocheses. Esrim Amma, which is 20 Ammas high. 20 Ammas, excuse me, not 20 Ammas high. It's 20 Ammas from the wall. The base Kodesh Kodashim of the Kodesh Kodashim was demarcates an area 20 by 20 behind it. Ma Amatraxin, what is an Amatraxin? So it says the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Yonah says, Butzraya. Butzraya, I don't know exactly what it means, so I kind of skipped over. Rabbi Yonah Butzraya. Rabbi Yonah from Butzraya Omar, he said, Traxon. Traxon means, in Greek, in and out. I guess extra is like outside, and intra is inside. So it's like, or in is inside. So it's like extra in, right? You see similarity to that? So trax is like extra, and then own is in, or something like that. So it means inside, outside in, meaning ma'avnim ma'bachutz. This delineates what's inside and what's outside. Rabbi Yisrael said, "Min madilsiv arboim ba'amoy ba'is." Now, the amma between the two parochas, we're not sure what its status is. It's a suffix, and that's why there were two parochas, right? It's not sure the status is between. So Rabbi Yisrael says, "Madilsiv arboim ba'amoy ba'is." It says that 40 ammas was the area of the heichal. Hu heichal. Well, Lifanai, that's the sanctuary before me. Adam Rad Mifnim, that teaches us that the rest of it, the 20 amos of the Kodesh Kodashim, plus the amma of the Amatraxin, all should be considered to be Kodesh Kodashim. Ramon said the exact opposite. It says, Vayas is base Kodesh Kodashim Esrim Amma. It says Kodesh Kodashim is 20 amos. Having a chutz, so the rest of it, including the amma between the parochas, should be outside, right? Should be not Kodesh. My time of the Rabbanim. Now, it's a machlokus actually, which Yerushalmi has not brought down yet. I don't know if it brings it down at any point. And the machlokus is whether there was an amma to walk between, or whether there was a curtain, one curtain, which was the thickness of an amma. Okay? So my time the Rabbanan said there were two curtains, because it says, V'ivdila paroches lachem v'gomer. Now, the way the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael learns it, it says, it's actually a smachta, but it says in the Chumash, "Ve'veitzu shamas mi beitz parochos es aron ha'edus," should be beyond the parochos the aron, and then v'ivdila parochos lachem. The parochos should separate for you. So where parochos there is redundant. Shchuv just said v'ivdila lachem because he knows beyond the parochos. So it must be, says the Shari Torah Yisrael, that it's superfluous to teach us that there are two parochos, one on the inner edge and one on the outer edge. Ma'avli Rabbi Yossi. What does Rabbi Yossi do with this extra word parochas? So he learns about Kodesh Kodashim Shalomal and Kodesh Kodashim Shalomaton. It's the Kodesh, above the Kodesh Kodashim is the second floor. So he uses to teach us that on the second floor there should also be a parochus between the area in the attic, so to speak, above the Kodesh, and the area in the attic above the Kodesh Kodashim.
You mean like a canopy?
What?
A canopy?
Mm-mm. In the second floor, there should be another parochus. Okay? So it says the Gemara, V'leis Rabbanan Kain, no Rabbanan hold their way as well. No, they don't hold on the second floor. There was actually a curtain dividing between the second floor over the Kodesh and the second floor over the Kodesh Kodashim. Rather, they hold Kiyatin like that, which are the Rosh Piece Basin. There were logs sticking up, Mavdil Baliyah, separating on the second floor, Ben Kodesh Kodashim, between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim. Now, according to Rabbanan, says the Mishnah, Hachitzon Aprufim Min Adorom. The outer curtain was folded back on the south, right? So the south is that way, folded back over here. And Pnimis Min Atzofon, the inner curtain was folded back on the north, right? Over here. So the Kohen Gadol would so the Kohen Gadol would come in here on the south side, and he would go between the curtains until he got to the north side. He got to the north side, he covered part of the Dorom, so then he would turn again to the south. I mean, once he was in, right? He would go, I did it backwards, because in the Kodesh Kodashim it was, Kodesh Kodashim is in this direction. Sorry. So Kodesh Kodashim, so would go with his left arm towards no, I don't bring it with me. I was smart. I made a mental note to bring it with me, and I did not. So he came in on the south. He walked towards the north, right? He came on the north side of the Kodesh Kodashim, and then walking back towards the Aron, he would go with his left arm towards the wall, right next to the wall. In other words, he wouldn't walk into the middle of the Kodesh Kodashim. It's not right. He should hug the curtain until he comes directly opposite the Kodesh Kodashim Aron, and then come to the Aron. Okay? When he gets our Nasa Samach, puts the shovel, bottom between the two poles. He piles the Ktoris on the coals. The house becomes full of smoke. So he comes back the same way he came in, and he goes back backwards. He davens a short fila. He didn't extend his fila, not to frighten the Jews who are waiting for his safe return. Tani. So he learned. Okay, let's say here's the menorah, and here's the shulchan. Okay, so menorah l'dorom hayanichnas means he will come in on this side between the menorah and the south wall. Okay, menorah l'dorom hayanichnas divrei meir. He used to come in on between the shulchan and the north wall, which means he used to go all the way around, right? Obviously, these are symbolic. We want shulchan, menorah, there are all sorts of symbolisms here, right? Tani, we learned mizbach halazav la menorah hayanichnas. He had another interpretation. Way back yonder is the mizbach hazav. Pick up the more a little bit. So here's the mizbach hazav, right? So we are coming between the mizbach hazav. The Mizbach Hazav Menorah will come in here between the Mizbach Hazav and the menorah, and Moya Ma'ach B'nei, we would walk here Achu Magia L'Tzafon, and he would then he would come in. Moya Ma'ach B'nei would walk between the two until he got to the north over here, and then enter the Kodesh Kodashim here on the north side. Okay. Now, between here, he's walking between two curtains, right? And he's walking with hot coals in his arm. So guess what could happen if he's not careful? Fire. So while he was walking, he would push with his elbows at the curtains, right? Kadesh lo yishtafu, in order that they shouldn't get burnt. Ha-parochos, since the parochos shouldn't get burnt. When he got to the north, again, that's over here, right? And he got turned to the south to go when he got to Kodesh Kodoshim. He would go back out, he would go back, in other words, he would hug the parochas, as we said before, in order that it shouldn't look like he's striding between the body, between the poles of the Oron. I think it's figurative. What it means is it shouldn't look like, he should look like he has some fear of the Oron. He's not going so near. Ketzurosa. Now, when he gets to the Mizbeach, to the Oron, what does he do? Amar Achina said, all the Gersos here are so messed up. Amar Achina meniach es hakaf baretz. So here it says kaf, but the Korban and I think it's right, says it's the machta. He puts the machta down on the ground. So the machta with the coals, right? And v'zorka ba'avir, and then he tosses the spoon in the air that we saw in the morning in the Avoda book, right? He tosses the spoon in the air, the kolta, and he catches it. Now here it says b'machta, but it doesn't really, according to the corner of Ada, and the Pashim shot is, we're going according to the opinion that you do need chafina acher chafina. So he doesn't catch it directly in the machta. Korban changes v'kolta b'chafinoso. He catches it in his hand. So he tosses the spoon, and it flips over, and he catches the stuff in his hand, and then he puts it on the machta, right? Shmuel Amar bodedo b'raglov. Now, there are various interpretations of that. According to one interpretation, he holds a spoon in his legs, between his legs, and turns it upside down, and stoops down to catch the powder with his chafina, with his hands. Yeah. There's another interpretation of that, which is Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael says, Borra begodlo, which means, not bodudab, means, as we also saw in the book, he goes like this. He uses his thumbs to push in, from, let's say, the kaf is over here, he uses his thumbs to push in from the kaf. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan says, Mara bitocha kaf. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't need chafina acher chafina, so you just can pour directly from the spoon of ketores onto the coals. And the smoke will go directly up like a palm tree, and then it dissipated or spread, the rest comes down. So he comes out the same way he went in other words, backwards. Okay? Rabbi Yosa. Now that's only like Rabbi Yosa. But Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, afilu boy, even he wants to lo yachil. You can't do that. Lama, why shlo yiten achor l'kodesh, so you shouldn't go backwards into the kodesh. This is a very interesting distinction. I want to say my own derech in this, and I think it's right. And then I saw in the Shai Torah Eretz Yisrael says the same thing. Rabbi Meir holds that there are two parochas, so you back up till actually it starts with Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef holds there's only one. Okay, there's only one, so you can't back up. I mean, you have to back up, right? Because no matter what, your backside is going to be towards one of the holy areas, right? So you have to back up. So you go out backwards, right? You recede from the Kodesh Kodashim, you retire backwards. But according to Meir, that there were two parochas, so you can go back till here, right? But let's say if you come backwards here, so actually you're coming with your backside first into the Kodesh, but you're not facing Kodesh Kodashim because there's a parochos between you and the Kodesh Kodashim. So according to Meir, logic dictates when you get over here, you turn and face the other way. Okay? Because the rate is a parochos. So according to him, you actually came out here, you went backwards, then you turned, and you went frontwards to come out that way, and come out frontwards towards the Kodesh. Okay? Similarly, Ksiv, it says, before the base of Mikdash was constructed, it says, Vayavo Shlomo labama asher begivon. Shlomo came to the altar, which was still at that time in Givon, Yerushalmi. So it says, Manakim, what does this mean? Im Yerushalmi Yuma. What's Givon Yerushalayim? Givon Yerushalayim, two separate cities. If he was coming from Yerushalayim, Neymar mi Yerushalayim la Bama. Say he was going from Yerushalayim to the Bama. If he was coming from the Bama, Neymar he Bama Yerushalayim. Say he was coming from the altar to Yerushalayim. So Shmuel Bar Abdullah Shmuel said it should be mi Bama Hayaba. He was coming from the Bama back to Yerushalayim, but he was coming in a way that he didn't turn backward. He didn't turn towards Yerushalayim. Shlolite Nachorov HaKodesh. In other words, as he was receding from the Bama towards Yerushalayim, he went mi Bama. He went where the apostle goes. Vayevosh Shlomo la Bama Asher begivon Yerushalayim. Means Shlomo came with his face towards the Bama towards Yerushalayim. You understand? He was walking backwards the whole time from Givon to Yerushalayim. So it's as if he was going to the Bama, even though he wasn't. He was coming away from the Bama. It was as if he was going to the Bama because his face was constantly towards the Bama. We davened the short field in the outer house. This tefillah came out safely from Kodesh, right? And of course, this tefillah is somewhat, more or less parallel to one we have in our Machzorim today. He said, you shouldn't have a golus, lo b'yoyim zeh. In other words, you shouldn't have the decree of golus, not today, lo b'shana zos, nor in this year. There's a decree of golus b'yoyim hazeh, o b'chol b'shana zos, tego seder l'makom shel techa, should have golus to the place of Torah. You tell me, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'seinu, shelo yetzei oleinu shiu chisaron. You should have any shortcoming. Lo b'yom hazeh, not today, v'lo b'shana zos, nor in this year. If we have to have a shortcoming, meaning a shortfall in our money, let's spend the money not on improper luxuries, but on mitzvos. A year of cheapness, a year of planning, a year of successful transactions, Shana Geshuma, a year of rain, ushchuna, and dry, utlula, and full of dew, all at the proper times. We shouldn't need each other. We shouldn't need to talk. Don't listen to the tefillos of the wayfarers who daven that it should not rain when it has to, right? And Rabbi Kesar Norman, Rabbi Kesar Norman, but Amcha Yisrael, he used to daven on your nation Israel. Shleichbu Shora Zua Gabzu. People should not lord it over other people. Okay? Valanche Sharon, and people in Sharon who had houses built on built of mud, which would very easily collapse. Their houses should not become their graves. He didn't daven long. Yisrael, in order not to frighten the Jews. Once there was a guy who spent a long time davening. They're about to go in after him to see what's happening. They said Shimon HaTzadik. It was Shimon HaTzadik. It was justified. So he said to him, Lama erachto, why did you spend such a long time? So he said, Bispal, you say, you are based on Mikdash. Shlo shouldn't be destroyed. So they said, big deal. You still shouldn't have davened for so long. Okay?
Why did they just tuck on the rope?
I don't know this rope. I'm not so sure there was a rope.
Yeah.
I think it's a common legend. I don't think there actually was a rope. Because none of them really died in the Kodesh Kodashim. They died in the Kodesh. Even the ones who died. They didn't, not to be Mechal. We had that in Yerushalmi, not to be Mechal the Kodesh Kodashim. They didn't die in the Kodesh Kodashim. He'd spend 40 years going Gadol. But the last year, he said to them, he made some dying this year. They said, how do you know? So he said to them, every year when I went to Kodesh Kodashim, there's a certain old man wearing white clothes, wrapped in a white hat, who came in with me. He went out with me. This year went in with me, he didn't go. So they asked the theological question. It says no person should be in Oel Moed where bevol chaper b'kodesh, when Aaron comes in, not say so until he leaves. And we'd say we dashna feel also kasaban, even those concerning which it says udmus pneim pnei adam, the visage of their faces like the visage of a human being, meaning malachim. Lo yubo moed, there shouldn't be no moed either. So what was this guy going in there? At best it was a malach. How could it possibly go in? So Melunsi said that Rabbi Yevo said, Ma Omar Li Dahava Banash, who says it was a person or a malach? And Yomer HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was an image, the prophetic image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we know, the Nevi'im and Ma'aser Merkava, they saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the form of a human person, even though it's just a metaphor. But so that's maybe what Shimon HaTzadik saw.
No, it couldn't have been HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was wearing a white hat, not a straw.
It's a white struggle. Says the Mishnah further.
What means?
The Rav of the Kaiso, he was nifter a few years ago, Rabbi Getz, used to wear a white stramal. All white, yeah. It's pretty impressive. Okay, it's the kind of stramal I want. Mishnita Haram. I don't want a stramal. I really want a Spodek. I don't like stramal. I like Spodeks much more. Mishnita Haram. What?
Overall 6 feet tall, those guys.
The Gerers over there. Rabbi Ken's was short. He wears this product. Okay, Mishnita Aron. Once the Aron was taken away, Yerushalmi Yuma, there was a stone there from the days of the first Nevi'im, meaning the first base of Mikdash, which and it was called Shasiyah. Gavah Minar Shlosh Etzbos. It was 3 Etzbos high from the ground. And that he would put it. The Evan Shasiyah today is far larger than the Shlosh Etzbos. It's not the Evan Shasiyah. The one they have in Dome of the Rock is the stone in which the Mizbeach was, not the Evan Shasiyah. Tani, we learned. Before the Aron was taken away, he put into Gniza. He would go in and out by the illumination of the Aron. Mishnita Aron, once the Aron was taken away, he had to feel his way. My impression upon reading this, how sad it is. The second base on Mikdash. Other people get other riots from here. But in the Gashish V'nichnas, the Gashi had to feel his way in and out. From there the world was spread out. The world was created from there. Same idea. It says Mizmor La'asaf, a Mizmor for Asaf, Kel Elokim Hashem Diber, HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke, Vayikol Eretz, and he called for the land, Mitzion, from Tzion, Michla Yofi, the glory, Elokim Ophir, the beauty, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Elokim Ophir, God appeared. V'omer, he says, Ocheni Yosa B'Tzion Evan, they're going to put a foundation in Tzion, the stone. All these things indicating there's a foundation to the world in Zion, which is this stone. Not as Adam Mishumayom and Marisbo, I don't have much time left. Not as Adam Mishuyom and Marisbo. He took now the blood from the guy who was stirring it. This is the blood of his par, of the bull. We're ahead of where we are now in the Bible. No, Nichnas, the Malcolm Shenichnas, he went in the same place where he went in before Mishuk, meaning the Kodesh Kodashim. V'amal the Malcolm Shomer, he stood in the same place where he stood. V'yizri manner, he sprinkled it. Achas l'malon, v'sheva l'maton, once up and 7 down. Now, he didn't actually intend to go and, like that. Rather, he would hold his hand stationary, el kamatzlif, like somebody who's flicking. And that means that the one up, he would go the way the Oracle explained. The one up, he would go like this. And the 7 down, he'd go, but not moving his hand, just like flicking. Okay? And Kachyamayna would count. Achas v'achas, achas v'shtayim, achas v'sholosh, achas v'arba, achas v'chomesh, achas v'sheish, achas v'sheva. Yotz v'nicho, he went out, al pinicho, and he would put the blood in this picture from the bull, al kenazov shebecho, on a gold stand, which was in Echel. Hevil as a story, now they brought in the Soyer Lashem. Shachli slaughtered it, the Kibbutz Mazak is dominant, received its blood. Nichnas v'makom shnichnas v'amam makom shamar, he went into the Kodesh Kodashim and stood there. Fizari man, when he would sprinkle it as well. Achatz l'mal, 1 up, v'sheva l'mata, and 7 down. He wouldn't intend actually to sprinkle up and down. El Kmatsu would just flick. V'kach Yamoyna B'chuli would count, etc. He went and put in the second stand, which was the Nazar. There's only one stand, because at no time were both bloods sitting in the stand. There's always dealing with one blood or the other. Okay? So he took back the blood of the par. Put the blood of the story down. Now he's sprinkling on the outside, not on the inside by the kaparos, but on the outside by the parochas. Shekeneged aren't be bachutz. Opposite the aren't outside the kodesh kadoshim. Achas amalim shevel amaton. 1 up and 7 down. V'loyim miskavin lazos lo amalim v'lo amaton. El kamatzi v'chacha yamoyna. It's missing the chulei. But that's how you count. Not the dam of sorry. V'nich dam par. Now I went back and took the blood of sorry. I left the dam of the par. These are men al parochas did the same thing. On the parochas shekeneged aren't be bachutz. Achas amalim shevel amaton. 1 up and 7 down. Same idea over again. Now, now he made a mixture. He mixed them both together. And put the empty one and full one. You know, like when you mix cups for Sheva brachas. You go back and forth. So that's what he did. And then he went out to the Mizbach Hazor before God. V'chiper olav, and he atoned for it. Zem, that's a quote from the pasuk, and it says in Mishnah, Zem Mizbach Hazor. That's the called Mizbach. Ma'amitzka matzlif. What's like matzlif? Shmuel Chanei B'Shem Rebbe said kimitavreid, and mitavreid is